But the big story and our special focus this evening on this broadcast, in less than 30 minutes from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will make history as he becomes the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel. The results of a growing diplomatic effort between the two nations that has built up over the last 25 years. But now as the Prime Minister begins his three-day visit to Israel, all eyes are on two world leaders as they ink a number of agreements, particularly in the field of defense. Just why is this visit a slice of history? Take a look.
PM Narendra Modi's historic three-day visit to Israel, the first such visit to the country by an Indian Prime Minister. And Israel has literally rolled out the red carpet for him. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has shunned protocol and will greet Modi personally when he lands at Tel Aviv. An honor so far accorded only to the Pope and the President of the United States.
ראש ממשלת הודו הדמוקרטיה הגדולה ביותר בעולם. וזהו ביקור היסטורי וראשון של ראש ממשלה.
While Netanyahu hailed Modi's visit as a significant step, PM Modi described India's ties with Israel as special, saying that the visit will further strengthen bilateral ties in key areas including counter-terror. India today has learnt that PM Modi and PM Netanyahu are expected to sign major defense deals to advance sales and production of missiles, drones and radar systems. While cybersecurity, water, agriculture and space technology will also be on the agenda. There is a big deviation from tradition though. Modi will not travel to Ramallah, the seat of Palestine Authority, and the opposition is already questioning this decision. India has long walked a diplomatic tightrope when it came to its policy towards West Asia. President Mukherjee and Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj visited Palestine during their Israel visit. And just a month and a half before Modi's trip, the Palestinian president visited India, and New Delhi reiterated its support to the two-state solutions. With PM Modi skipping Palestine during his trip to Israel, India seems to have delinked the two entities when it comes to bilateral ties, not allowing principled opposition to stand in the way of strategic interest. With Padmaja Joshi in Tel Aviv and Gaurav Sawant in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
And as the Prime Minister prepares to land in Jerusalem, the Israeli capital, in a short while from now, I'm joined in the studios by Brigadier B.D. Mishra, defense analyst, by Sandeep Unnithan, executive editor at India Today, who tracks defense and foreign affairs for us. Also joining us is S.T. Muni, senior academic, someone who's tracked these issues for a number of years. I'm also joined from London by Dr. Waiel Awwad. He joins me on Skype from London, and Geeta Mohan, who covers foreign affairs for us, is joining me from the newsroom. Major visit, lots to discuss on why this visit is so important and critical. Professor Muni, there will be those today who will say that this is truly history in the making. A country with which for many years we didn't have diplomatic ties. Today the Prime Minister making what in the real sense of the terms seems to be a landmark visit. Does this mark a departure from stated Indian policy or merely a continuum of what we've seen over the last few years?
I would say it is a continuum at a higher level, in the sense that the policy balance which we have been maintaining, I would say since 1992, when we had established diplomatic relations with Israel, to this date there has always been a balance of sorts in one way or the other. What Prime Minister's visit marks is a level up. In fact, it was a level up even with President Pranab Mukherjee visiting them. But the Prime Ministerial visit is politically highly important. It is also history because this is completing 25 years of diplomatic relations.
That's right. And I just want to understand from you, Geeta Mohan, because you track the Ministry of External Affairs, what kind of investment has gone into this visit, into building up for this visit? This has been in the making now for over a year from what I can gather, and a culmination of a lot of backroom efforts on the part of the Ministry of External Affairs.
Well, Rajdeep, not 1 but 3 years, Israel was expecting to be one of the first countries that Prime Minister Narendra Modi would visit after taking office. And since then, there have been engagements between India and Israel to ensure that the visit really takes place and happens. The timing certainly was not right for in the first year of the Prime Minister's term for him to make that visit to Israel. And hence, there has been a lot of engagement to ensure that it happens in the 25th year of diplomatic ties between India and Israel. Like Professor Muni said, Rajdeep, I'd agree with him that this is an up. It started with Narasimha Rao, Deve Gowda sending his own delegation, high-level delegations to Israel, and also then Atal Bihari Vajpayee sending none other than the Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani to Israel, as also the then Defence Minister Jaswant Singh. He was Foreign Minister, I suppose then. But nonetheless, huge level and high-level engagements happened through the years and through various governments and various terms. This is only a one-up where Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be the first Prime Minister to visit Israel, and the engagement is and had begun with the kind of camaraderie and the kind of relationship that Narendra Modi, as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, shared with Israel as a government, and hence the engagement has been for the past 3 years to ensure that this trip happens.
Can I just stop you for a moment? Because, you know, it's very interesting. The Prime Minister actually, as Chief Minister of Gujarat, has visited Israel. The other thing, Sandeep, Unnithan, is that the backdrop to this visit is this is a Prime Minister who's also gone to the United Arab Emirates, who's also gone to Saudi Arabia. So he has in some way invited the Palestinian leadership in May to this country. So perhaps has at least offset any criticism, and there is some already. Why isn't he going to Ramallah? Why isn't he going and visiting the Palestinian territory? Is this a clear attempt at de-hyphenating the Israel-Palestinian relationship? Do you believe those criticisms are still valid?
Well, Rajdeep, there's not been a huge significant change in our Palestine policy, because the Prime Minister may not be going to Ramallah during this visit, but let's not forget the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was here in Delhi not so long ago in May. He spent 4 days here on a state visit. So with that, India has kind of signified there's been no drastic change in its policy, moving away from Palestine. And the Israel visit comes after he's visited, like you pointed out, he's visited multiple Arab countries. But you should also remember that it's coming at a time when the Arab world itself is so intensely fragmented in recent months. And, old adversaries of Israel are now actually, on their side, as we've seen in recent months.
Let me take that to Dr. Waiel Awwad. Dr. Awwad, as someone who has tracked the region for years, do you believe that there is any sense in now equating the Israel-Palestinian relationship? Can India de-hyphenate it as the Prime Minister is trying? Would you agree that this is, in that sense, a major diplomatic coup staged by Prime Minister Modi, that he's been able to reach out to Israel without really antagonizing any of the Arab countries?
Well, absolutely right, because I do remember 1991 when Mr. Narasimha Rao have invited late President Arafat to tell him that they wanted to establish relation with Israel. And I think the credit goes to the Congress throughout these decades of relation between Israel and India. But this visit was cemented by, this relation is cemented by the visit of the Prime Minister, where definitely it will give a new chapter of the history in the making between India and Israel, not only in the defense, but not only strategically as well. And that is why we call it a historic visit, because I think the Prime Minister, he is the first leader of India who will be visiting only Tel Aviv and is not going to the Ramallah, which is that's what the Arabs or the Palestinians felt, that they have been left out. Because unlike the President Mukherjee when he went, or Sushma Swaraj when she left, she went there also, they visited both the sides. But this is a new chapter of history, and I think he's trying to give an indication that he's keeping an equal distance between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It might be looking like that on declared policy.
If anything, he seems to be tilting towards the Israelis, and he's had a strong relationship both on agriculture, irrigation, and now increasingly defense with the Israelis. But I'm joined by voices from Israel. Journalist Waiel Awwad joins me. Advocate Benjamin Grossman also there in Israel. Let me come to Waiel Awwad. Do you get a sense that this is a visit which Israel is also anticipating. I'm told that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be at Tel Aviv airport to receive the Prime Minister, and the only two others who've been given this honor in the past are the Pope and President Trump of the United States. So is this being treated, Ms. Deckel, as a major step forward?
Absolutely, yes. I think, first of all, on the personal level, I think that our Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi have shown a very close relationship on a personal level, not only as two states leaders. The same is also when I was with President Rivlin in Delhi last November. There was a meeting with the Prime Minister Modi, and again you can see the body language of a very close relationships. In that sense, it's something which is new to us, because I think that in the past it was less showing out or transparent like in this case.
Islet Benjamin, do you agree with that, Islet? That this is a major step forward.
And also, Mr. Netanyahu announced that he will wait for Mr. Narendra Modi when he will land with all the ministers. So
this is a very high-profile visit.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that Netanyahu and Narendra Modi in many ways are similar people? They are both in their own way polarizing figures, but also charismatic and very popular. Would I be right in saying that? Do you believe these are two leaders who will get along famously because they have a lot in common?
Yes, they are two very charismatic leaders. Although, you know, Netanyahu does not have Netanyahu's parties, the Likud does not have a majority like Modi has in the Indian parliament.
Right.
So in that sense, I think that Modi is slightly more popular in India than Netanyahu here, but both of them are very charismatic, and the regime is based on their personality and way and their capability, you know, to get to the hearts of the people. In that sense, yeah, they are very alike.
We're actually having live pictures, sir, at the moment, waiting at Tel Aviv airport. Are the Israeli dignitaries? Brigadier Mishra, your sense, Brigadier Mishra, is that is this about defense or more than that? At the moment, India remains Israel's top destination for arms exports, buying 41% of Israel's total arms export between 2012 and 16, according to an independent global conflict and arms research institute, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Do you believe that this is all about business, and particularly for Israel, this is about promoting their business interests, both defense and possibly agriculture?
Rajdeep, I think in our country, there's a slogan. I think every citizen will certainly understand, and they say also, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. And this particular visit is concerning both Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. It's military hardware, and of course, Kisan, you know what all is being done. But the most important point is that yes, we are the biggest arms purchaser in the world, no two ways about it. And our resources, our GDP is not maximum in the world.
41%, we are taking 41% of Israel's arms export. I'm just wondering, we're told about this
the most important point is that in whole world, anybody who is supplying you weapon, the state of the art technology, they are not prepared to give. Here is one country. Here's one country where you have got very good expectation, hope that they will transfer you the latest technology, the state of the art.
That's an interesting point you're making, because Sandeep, Unnithan, I think, isn't that really what India hopes to get from Israel, which they perhaps won't even get from Western powers, the ability to transfer technology. There's much talk about the drone deal which has been struck, but it's more than just the drone deal. It's the level to which you can have technological cooperation with Israel, which you perhaps won't get with many other countries at the moment.
Rajdeep, we should see where the relationship is coming from, because for the longest time when we didn't have access to the US arms market, Israel was some kind of a halfway house for Western technology at very competitive rates. And it's commendable that Israel has been able to hold its position as the top arms exporter to India. Israel is today our third largest arms supplier after the United States and Russia. So despite the fact that they don't make complete weapon systems, I mean, they don't make aircraft or submarines or warships of the kind that we buy from the United States or Russia, despite that, the Israelis have managed to hold on to their market share with, simply through their expertise in making missiles and electronics and cyber warfare, technology, which they've been very aggressively selling to India in the last couple of years.
So is it really, Professor Muni, the self-interests of the two countries have happily coincided? India's self-interest of increasing investment needed for agriculture, for water, along with defense, along with Israel's need to also be accepted in a way by India in a manner that we never really accepted them during the Indira Gandhi years. That this really marks both an ideological shift as well as a strategic shift driven by realpolitik at the end of the day. The self-interest of Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu have happily coincided.
Absolutely. In fact, the shift started much earlier, Rajdeep.
With Narasimha Rao, we don't give enough credit to Mr. Rao. No, it's interesting today the Congress is criticizing what's happening, but it's Mr. Rao who really opened that gateway in the early 90s.
Frankly, if you go into history, you can go even little before that, but forget about that. Narasimha Rao is a landmark because that is the year when he reached out to diplomatic relations were established, and this shift has already been taking place. You said absolutely correctly that it is based upon the national interest or self-interest, and it is here that Israel, which is economically facing a lot of internal difficulties, finds the Indian market very, very attractive, and a market which is willing to open up to Israel, at least in the defense products, water technologies, agriculture, and even now they are expanding into overall science and technology as well as
so are we just a market for them, Professor Muni? At the end of the day, is this just a market, or would they like a deeper relationship? I asked the question to our Israeli guests that Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi, there will be those who believe that ideologically they have more in common than they have in distinctiveness to each other.
No, ideologically, yes, in terms of if you go into the overall approach to social issues. But if you look at the regional and global issues, there are differences in the wavelengths. I mean, if you want to look at example, look at Syria and Iraq. The way, the kind of role which Israel is playing, Mr. Modi would hesitate, India would hesitate to do that. Even when Modi ji came, say in May 1914, 3-4 months later, there was a conflict in Gaza. And if you look into India's approach to that or India's response to that, it is quite a balanced one. Neither isolating Hamas nor really criticizing Israel. And this is the kind of what I mentioned was balance is actually inherent into the Indian approach, not only towards Palestinian and Israeli issue, but
you don't think there's a significant tilt? You don't think that there's a clear tilt towards Israel now?
I said it is politically upped.
No, what you say a balance. Do you believe it's still a balanced approach?
In terms of substance of the approach, in terms of its span and extent, there are certain differences. But in terms of substance as to how we deal with these two mutually conflicting entities called Palestine on the one hand and Israel on the other, I think there is a very cleverly negotiated balance, which probably is going in favor of Israel, and not from now. Ever since the Arab world started changing their policies towards Israel.
It's interesting. In a sense, you're saying Mr. Modi is building on on the base that was laid over the last 25 years. Dr. Waiel Awwad, your sense as we are preparing for the Prime Minister to arrive in Tel Aviv, do you get a sense, Dr. Waiel Awwad, that the Arab world will look at Mr. Modi's visit as a clear evidence now of an India tilt towards Israel, or will they see it as a balanced approach, considering, as I said earlier, the Prime Minister has already visited UAE, Saudi Arabia and reached out to the Arab world?
Well, Rajdeep, you're absolutely right. You know, when we met with the senior leadership of the Palestinian Authority, in fact, one of them have clearly said that we lost India. I mean, if that is the sense among the Palestinians, then forget about the Arabs, because the Arabs are now openly, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, are openly talking and normalizing relation with Israel. The question is here, is Israel going to honor a state of Palestine coexisting next door? Well, the question here is, this is what is more important to us to find out, that two-state solution is still on the table, or we forgot about it. I think these are the issues. Well, I would like to add one point here is that India cannot, Israel will not give India the critical technology technology, even for what you were saying in the arm industry, because most of their technology is an American-based oriented technology. So if you wanted to give those technology into India, then you will have a problem with the United States. So I think a relation is a win-win situation for India and Israel, no doubt about it.
Right.
And the Arab world definitely will be assured by India that they are not going to change their position, and not at the cost of the Palestinian cause.
Let me go back to Tel Aviv, to journalist Ailet Dekal, advocate Benjamin Grossman. When I see the Prime Minister now arrive, this is very unusual that your Prime Minister has chosen to come to the airport to receive him. The only two previous occasions being with the Pope and the US President. Am I to understand this reflects how important this visit is being seen by the Israelis?
Absolutely, yes. On political level, personal level, cultural level, I think everybody is connected to this visit. I want to refer to what you said before. I don't think it's merely, commercial interest beyond this visit, because commercial interest, trade was within.
I'm just going to stop you for a moment as we listen in to the welcome that is being given at the moment. As I said, unprecedented at the moment what we are seeing in Tel Aviv. The Israeli Prime Minister, contentious figure himself, Benjamin Netanyahu, red carpet welcome for the Indian Prime Minister there as he arrives in Tel Aviv. Let's just listen in for a moment to the Israeli band as they play a welcome for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister to visit Israel 25 years after India finally broke the diplomatic isolation of Israel. That was a feature, in a sense, of the non-aligned movement years. Geeta, Mohan, you've been saying that the MEA has invested a lot in this visit. What is India hoping to get out of it? Is it, as we've been saying, at one level about markets, but also in another level about making the point that balance in the new world is not the same as balance in a pre-Cold War era?
Well, that's right. It's the balance that's important, because business was happening with Israel, Rajdeep. It's the strategic cooperation that India and Israel would be looking at a time when West Asia is burning, at a time that India also is heavily invested in West Asia, and the fight against terrorism is going to be paramount. There is going to be a very strong statement on terrorism and fight against terrorism in the joint statement as well. Looking at that, Israel is a key player, is an important partner. But the dehyphenation that, Rajdeep, you've been talking about when it comes to Palestine is something that has already been discussed in the back channel talks and the preparations that were taking place between India and Israel for Prime Minister Modi to visit Israel. The entire engagement was also about how to handle and how to balance the equation. Again, like Professor Muni said, that it's only upping the entire level of engagement, but there has been no shift in India's policy when it comes to Palestine. India has not shifted from the stand of a separate statehood for Palestine. Unless and until that happens, there is no major shift we're looking at. It's only how we're approaching the Israel and Palestine issue. A very highly placed source told me in the Ministry of External Affairs, Rajdeep, that why does Prime Minister Narendra Modi have to visit Ramallah when he's there? Why can't there be a standalone visit? President Mahmoud Abbas was apprised of Prime Minister's visit to Israel, and there have been no feathers that have been ruffled so far in terms of how the Arab world is viewing this entire visit. The bigger issue over here for Israel is India's close ties with Iran, the naval exercises with Iran. While we have none with Israel, we continue to have exercises with Iran, and that is something that riles the Israelis more than the Palestine issue today in present times. The guard of honor is on, Rajdeep, even as we speak. Prime Minister Narendra Modi anytime now will be stepping out of that aircraft.
Right. Well, that's, we wait for that moment when the Prime Minister will step out. And as we said, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu there at the airport. Interesting point made by our Israeli guest that actually Netanyahu on a weaker wicket than the Indian Prime Minister, because the Indian Prime Minister heads a majority government while Netanyahu heads a coalition government. But I reiterate, there are, both in their, perhaps their critics will say their attitudes towards the minorities in both the countries are subject of some controversy. But at the same time, they're both determined, charismatic figures. You see them getting along rather well, Sandeep? The kind of leaders that they are? The age of the Netanyahus, the Trumps, the Modis?
Right, exactly, Rajdeep. I think you said it. It's just the way that Trump got along so well with Prime Minister Modi. I see the similar kind of chemistry happening between the two leaders here. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi, very, very, larger than life figures, like to be seen as taking a hard stance on various issues, be it terrorism or, dealing with their border issues. And I'd also like to point the fact that, Prime Minister Modi as Chief Minister was one of the very few Chief Ministers to have visited Mumbai while the 26/11 attacks were on. And he made a very interesting statement there outside the Oberoi Hotel just 2 days after the attacks, where he says that, this is the first attack of its kind where Americans, Britishers and Israelis were deliberately targeted. Right. And in a sense, he kind of spoke about the changing face of international terrorism. And I think we are going to see a lot of that in, tomorrow when he meets the survivor, the sole survivor of the Chabad house.
That's right. In fact, I'm told that that meeting has now been preponed. It could be 9:30 p.m. tonight. We are waiting to get more details of that. And we'll also be going live to Chabad house in Mumbai, which in a sense represented a shared concern over global terror. But yes, Professor Muni, you wanted to make a quick point.
No, I just wanted to add a footnote to the point you have well made in terms of Netanyahu and Modi chemistry. Tell me one leader with whom Mr. Modi could not establish rapport. Age or no age, religion or no religion, country or no country. Therefore, I think there is a certain underlying quality in the what you call a Gujarati entrepreneurship.
Many will say that it is Nepal of all countries with which we've had a rather difficult relationship. In fact, the neighborhood, many say that the neighborhood is where the Modi policy has not worked as effectively as it has. You're saying at a personal level?
Personal level, there is no leader with whom Mr. Modi has not been able to establish a perfect rapport.
And you say this is the Gujarati businessman, is it? No, because when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat and went to Israel, many saw it as the
he's not a businessman, it is entrepreneurship which is
entrepreneurship. But it's interesting because at that time it was felt when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat and the US apparently was denying him a visa, he reached out to countries like China, like Israel, and maybe that previous relationship that he has built when he was Chief Minister in Gujarat and in areas like irrigation in particular, the help that he got from Israel, he's now building on it. So there is, Brigadier, a trust factor. There seems to be that the Israeli leadership particularly trusts Narendra Modi much more than they may have trusted previous Indian leaderships.
I would go back to what Professor Muni was saying. Trump, the kind of supercilious countenance that he wears every time anybody comes. But when he was meeting Modi ji, it was absolutely sober. It was astonishing. And everybody on all debates here, on TV channels, everybody was saying that Trump is unpredictable. God alone knows what he will do. But then he started with handshake and ultimately finished with embrace. So I think this man has got something in him. But I want to mention one thing about Netanyahu. This man, he's from Shariat Medical. And 30th June 2016, I was in Jerusalem, and that was the 40th anniversary of Entebbe raid. And there was a civil meeting in which Netanyahu, he was addressing people, and he said three things very important. And I think I admire him as a national leader. First, he said that Israel has got long reach. Anywhere, any Jew in the world, if he's in trouble, will save him. And second, he said that we have got capability to do it. And third, he said that Lieutenant Colonel Unnithan, who was killed in that raid, there was only one man killed. He was the commander. He said he was my elder brother. And that is how he ended.
That's sort of Netanyahu's definition of Israeli nationalism. There will, of course, be the flip side that the likes of Dr. Waiel Awwad will perhaps also reflect on, which is their belief that Netanyahu has been less than fair to the Palestinian cause. I just want to get in again views from Israel. Journalist Ailet Dekal and advocate Benjamin Grossman. you know, how do you see Netanyahu? What is Netanyahu expecting out of this visit from Prime Minister Modi? We've looked at India's expectations. What are Israel's expectations as we prepare for the moment when the Prime Minister meets your Prime Minister?
Well, I think that most of the expectations has already been fulfilled by the visit itself. As you can see on the screen, Netanyahu is very welcoming Modi, and I think that the visit itself, it's some kind of fulfillment of expectation. We know that there are going to be several MOUs between the governments to be signed. The government of Israel just approved last week a decision or a master plan for tying up the relationships with India, with the budget to about close to $250 million shekels, up to 4 years, which is not only about commercial, it's also about cultural and so on. So I think that as in many of such high profile visits, most of the expectations are fulfilled before the visit itself.
So is it, but it's surely more than just symbolism. I think it's important from an Indian perspective to realize, presumably, Professor Muni, this is much more than symbolism that we are seeing. It's not just the fact that an Indian Prime Minister is landing there 25 years after we ended diplomatic isolation, but that the relationship, as you said, has now been taken to a different level, doesn't only work in the field of defense, but works at multiple levels. There are state governments with whom Israel has very strong relationships in the field of irrigation. The Maharashtra government, for example, being one good example of that. So this is a relationship operating presumably at multiple levels, not just in terms of symbolism anymore.
That's true, because Netanyahu has underlined it by going to the airport to receive him personally.
And a signed article today in the Times of India between the two leaders. I'm trying to think, when was the last time that an Indian and foreign leader together brought out a signed article in a major national newspaper?
They have written in national newspapers, but individually.
So to have a joint article clearly reflects that the desire on both sides to take this relationship on another level. Sandeep, is there therefore a sense that what we are seeing now with the Indian leadership arriving there is really a breakthrough moment? I mean, out of all the visits of the Prime Minister, and he's done many, this perhaps is in the true sense historic.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's no two ways about it, Rajdeep. This, in terms of sheer optics, this is probably the biggest visit by an Indian Prime Minister abroad in the last 25 years. It's almost like, you know, Nixon's visit to China, where you're ending the diplomatic isolation. Symbolically, this was a huge visit, but it's building on years of cooperation in, you know, in the agricultural field, in defense, in security.
But often that was carried out behind closed doors. Now it's open.
Now it's,
you know, there was a sense through the 90s that while we were reaching out to Israel, we were doing it by stealth. Now it's open, and I think you've got to give Prime Minister Modi credit for that he's putting it out right there, you know, embracing Israel, which makes it different.
Absolutely. And the challenge before the two leaders now would be to take this relationship to the next level, because there's been a sense on both sides that the relationship has been plateauing in a sense, both economically and in military in the military areas. So it will be a big challenge on the for the two leaders to figure out the new areas of cooperation where they can actually, you know, boost this relationship. And I'm sure this is what we're going to be seeing in the next couple of days, that in terms of the various agreements that they are signing, whether it's on
and there is Prime Minister Modi as he comes there. One always looks at his sartorial look. Let's just try and understand what this visit, as we said, means. The Prime Minister there, all set to meet his Israeli counterpart. Sandeep, Unnithan likening this to perhaps the most historic visit that certainly we've seen in a very long time. The Prime Minister, of course, hugging his counterpart. He likes that. So you have a strong Modi hug. Benjamin Netanyahu is a big man himself.
And both of them at the same time initiated the hug.
Yeah, so it's very different.
And equally warmly.
So it's a little different to what we saw in the Rose Garden of Washington the other day. Much warmer, more direct. And the two leaders both clearly appreciating the hug that they've given each other. But a visit that is landmark in every sense of the word. The Indian and Israeli Prime Minister together. Who would have thought this would be happening in the 70s and 80s, the Indira era, where there was a virtual diplomatic isolation by India and a reach out to Palestine. Let's just listen in now as the two leaders are given a formal welcome. So
משמר יחטיף את נשקו. חטף, צ'ק! אדוני ראש הממשלה, Welcome to Israel. משמר כבוד של חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, ערוך ונכון לסקירתך. אדוני. משמר יציג את נשקו. צא, שק! משמר יעבור לנוח, מות נוח.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, דבר ראש הממשלה ושר החוץ בנימין נתניהו. Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister of the State of Israel and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, will deliver his welcome remarks. Please be seated.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who will be the first to deliver remarks welcoming the Indian Prime Minister. Listen in.
ברוך הבא לישראל, ראש ממשלת הודו, ידידי נרנדרה מודי. My friend Prime Minister Narendra Modi, welcome to Israel. आपका स्वागत है, मेरे दोस्त. Prime Minister, we've been waiting for you a long time. We've been waiting almost 70 years, in fact, because yours is truly a historic visit. It's the first time an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Israel. We receive you with open arms. We love India. We admire your culture. We admire your history, your democracy, your commitment to progress. We view you as kindred spirits in our common quest to provide a better future for our peoples and for our world. Prime Minister, when I first met you at the United Nations 3 years ago, we agreed to break down the remaining walls between India and Israel. We shook each other's hands and we agreed to forge a historic partnership for progress. We then met again in Paris, and since then we've spoken many times on the phone. But I remember, my friend, what you said in that first meeting. You said that when it comes to India-Israel relations, the sky is the limit. But actually, my friend, the sky isn't the limit, because today, even our space programs are working together to achieve even greater heights. The ties between our talented, innovative peoples is natural. It's so natural that we could ask, what took so long for them to blossom? Well, it took a meeting of minds and hearts. It took a commitment of our governments. We have that today. On this visit, your Make in India initiative meets my Make with India policy. We're setting up a $40 million innovation fund as the seed for even greater cooperation on technology between us. Our partnership extends to water, agriculture, security, energy, many, many other fields. I believe the formula for success is simple. It's I square, T square. That equals Indian talent times Israeli technology. It equals Israel-India's ties for tomorrow. I square, T square. Now, I'm confident, this is the degree of mathematics I remember from my student days, but I'm confident of the real mathematics of life. I'm confident of the success of our partnership for many reasons. First is the talent of our peoples. It's been said, Prime Minister, that in Silicon Valley in California, the two most common languages overheard are Hindi and Hebrew. Occasionally, one hears some native English too. Second, I believe in the success of our partnership because of the great sympathy between our peoples, the natural camaraderie between Indians and Israelis. The Jews of India and the 100,000 Israelis of Indian descent are a wonderful human bridge between our two nations, our two peoples. Third, I'm confident of our success because of leadership. Prime Minister Modi, you're a great leader of India and a great world leader. Your visit to Israel is a testament to that. Our two peoples have deeply held values rooted in ancient cultures, yet we both seek to realize the promise of a better future. I know, and this visit marks that very clearly, I know that we can do even more, even better, together. Welcome to Israel, my friend, Prime Minister Modi. Shukran. Thank you.
גבירותיי ורבותיי, יש לנו הכבוד לשמוע את דבר אורחנו המכובד, ראש ממשלת הודו, הוד מעלתו, נרנדרה מודי. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of the Republic of India.
Excellency Prime Minister Netanyahu, ladies and gentlemen, Shalom, Leklam, Anisemia Mayod, Lehiat Po. It is my singular honor to be the first ever Prime Minister of India to undertake this groundbreaking visit to Israel. I want to thank my friend, Prime Minister Netanyahu, for the invitation and for receiving me with so much warmth. My visit celebrates the strength of centuries-old links between our societies. based on these bonds of our partnership, has maintained a strong and sustained upswing since the establishment of full relationship, diplomatic relations 25 years ago. Friends, the people of Israel have built a nation on democratic principles. They have nurtured it with hard work, greed, and the spirit of innovation. You have marched on regardless of adversity and converted challenges into opportunity. India applauds your achievements. Today is July 4. Exactly 41 years since Operation Entebbe. The day when your Prime Minister and my friend Bibi lost his elder brother Yoni while saving the lives of so many Israel hostages. Your heroes are an inspiration for the younger generations. Friends, India is a very old civilization, but a young nation. 800 million people in India are below 35 years of age group. The talented and skilled youth of India are also its driving force. They propel my vision to transform India, its industry, its economy, its way of doing business, and its interface with the world. Friends, in our path of sustained high growth and all-round development, India counts Israel amongst its important partners. The need to rely on science, technology, innovation, and higher technical education to overcome our developmental challenges to common to both of us. The domains also bring together the creative energy and ideas of the highly skilled youth and entrepreneurs of the two countries. Alongside building a partnership for shared economic prosperity, we are also cooperating to secure our societies against common threats such as terrorism. A progressive partnership in all these areas would shape the scope of my conversation with Prime Minister, my friend Netanyahu. I'm also keen to interact with the Indian diaspora in Israel, including a large number of Jews of Indian origin who have enriched both our societies. Excellency and friends, my visit marks a path-breaking journey of engagement, a journey that we are excited to undertake together for the good of our people and societies. As we march together, a strong and resilient partnership with Israel will be my intent and focus. I thank you once again for this tremendous welcome. Thank you very much.
You have it, the two leaders making their introductory remarks there at Tel Aviv Airport. the first step of this 3-day official visit between the two sides. And as the Prime Minister and the two Prime Ministers both reiterated on more than one occasion, this is path-breaking. The Israeli Prime Minister saying it's not just sky is the limit, but we go to space together. And as you can see, in their shared interest, particularly in the war on terror, the Prime Ministers have, in a sense, sent out a very powerful message. We're told those are members of the Israeli cabinet who are being introduced to the Indian Prime Minister. We are also told at 9:30 p.m. is possibly when the Indian Prime Minister will be meeting 10-and-a-half-year-old Moshe, who, remember, lost his parents in the 26/11 attack in Mumbai. So this is a very important day, in a sense, in Indo-Israel relations, a day when the two sides have brought out into the open what has happened over the last 20-25 years behind closed doors. Despite the strong trade and defense relationships and in agriculture, now we have a relationship that is out in the open. The entire Israeli cabinet, we are told, is there to greet the Indian Prime Minister, which makes this visit, in every sense of the word, truly path-breaking. Mr. Modi, in a sense, looking to make this his moment in history, carving out really a niche for himself in this relationship with Israel. It's a process that he has built on. Remember, it was Narasimha Rao who opened the doors in 1992 when he informed Yasser Arafat that he intended to reach out to Israel. Prime Minister Mohan had signed a major defense deal with the Israelis in 2009. And now you've got Prime Minister Modi taking that relationship to another level. Clearly a major day is unfolding in Israel at the moment. Your first reactions to what you heard the Indian Prime Minister say, Professor Muni?
No, I think he emphasized the terrorism aspect very, very clearly. And in addition to that, he also emphasized the developmental aspects. And I think these are the two key features. Probably emphasizing terrorist aspect, he would expect much more cooperation on what you call cross-border terrorism from Israel. But let us see to what extent Israel can, besides of course the intelligence and home guard security matters come in. Let us see to what extent this cooperation can really go. The defense cooperation he did not mention as emphatically, and that
because
is
he probably takes that now for granted, and that's part of the system.
Surprising.
Your first reactions to what you heard?
Well, Rajdeep, I'm trying to recall the last time we ever saw a ceremony of this magnitude on the tarmac. You know,
Yes.
even before he's actually entered Israel, entered one of the cities, you have an entire thing laid out there. You have such warmth in the language of the two leaders, where they're repeatedly calling each other "my friend." You know, and that is the recurring theme here. We've not seen Prime Minister Modi use this kind of language for other leaders, you know, or get the kind of warmth on both sides has been rarely seen that we have seen here. The entire cabinet of Israel out there on the tarmac to welcome the Prime Minister. I mean, these are very encouraging first signs of of this visit. And I'm sure the days forward, we're going to have much more interesting things to talk about.
Brigadier Mishra, your first reactions?
Actually, it's amazing.
And I must say, he referred to Entebbe much as in the manner that you did, July 4th. This is, Narendra Modi has this ability, even in an extempore speech, to somewhere recall some moment that will strike a chord with his host. So that might explain what Professor Muni says, his ability, in a sense, to strike a chord.
Actually, Prime Minister Netanyahu, he started with welcome you with open arm, and he said, I love India. But he ended with saying, my friend Modi. Though Modi ji, he referred to terrorism only once. He did not say terrorism word even twice. But technology, he said more than once. And Modi ji, he mentioned word friend in between, neither in the beginning nor at the end. But all these expressions, they were so sincere, transparent, and so very imposing. I mean, it's apparent. Anybody could see it. And I think so what Modi ji said, path-breaking journey, that is what it seems it will be.
Let me get a slightly perhaps more discordant, a slightly divergent view from you, Waiel Awwad, if you're still with us. Mr. Awwad, your sense, do you believe that these words being used, path-breaking, ground-breaking, are are realistic assessments of the situation. Now, you may look at it from a Palestinian perspective, but purely from an Indo-Israel relationship, the two prime ministers seem determined to put this relationship on a new level. As Sandeep mentioned, when was the last time you had such a reception on a tarmac? You've had the two writing a signed article today in the Times of India. Clearly a desire on both sides to look at the, to in a sense, shed the past and look to the future.
Absolutely. Look, it is. I do agree when the word was saying it's a historic visit. It is definitely a historic visit. It is definitely a first step taken by Indian Prime Minister, who nobody have dared to do it. That's absolutely right. But my worries is how do we define terrorism? Because if you look at the Israelis in the West Asia and Syria and Iraq, they are supporting Al-Qaeda, and you are against Al-Qaeda. How do you find a common ground in fighting terrorism? I think Indian terrorism is yet to be defined in the international world. But what is terrorism? The definition of terrorism itself is not being yet defined. Okay. So how do we see somebody supporting a terrorism in Syria, Al-Qaeda in the border with Syria, where Israel wanted to take part of the Syrian Qunaytara because there is oil in the Golan discover? How will the Indian react when they know that it is the same terrorists that the enemies are next door in Afghanistan? It is something that one has to understand what is the lying between the lines. And I think it has to be seen in those angles. And I'm sure it is a win situation for Netanyahu more than Modi, because Netanyahu was looking for this visit to boost his own image inside Israel. That is for sure. Narendra Modi was one of the Prime Minister of India who was keen to go to Israel, but it was delayed, and he is the one who took this bold step. I think these are issues that has to be taken in consideration, because India have a history of 10,000 years behind her, and India is not just born 70 years ago. I think that's the message one has to understand, that India is an international player, is a global power, and can base its relation with the world in a sovereign, way of looking at it.
Let me get my Israeli guests in at a moment. Your sense from what you heard from the two prime ministers, confirming what you've been saying to us, that there is this extensive warmth. Prime Minister Netanyahu calling the Indian Prime Minister Benjamin Grossman his good friend. Ailet Dekal, the manner in which the two leaders reacted. When was the last time you saw in Israel the Israeli Prime Minister give such a welcome to any world leader?
I have not seen, and I'm about 51, and I must tell you that I was expecting this visit, but this is far beyond my expectations, to be very frank with you. I think that you can see the relationship which are genuine, and I want to give you some perspective from Israel. The importance of this visit across all the parties in Israel. I mean, all the parties in Netanyahu, has some criticism by the opposition in Israel, naturally. But everybody is embracing the Prime Minister Modi, and this is crossing all the parties in Israel. This is far beyond any internal debates in Israel. I think it's something really, I think what we've just seen, it's history, not lesser than that. Really history. It reminds me even the visit of President Sadat from Egypt in Israel.
Right.
Late 90s, in the late 70s, sorry, I was very young then. But really, my feeling is very close to that. This is a really turning point. And I think from now on, the sky's the limit, really. I'm really, I was expecting, a very warm...
It's gone beyond the sky, Benjamin. It's gone to the space is the limit, was the exact words used. So clearly there's, there's this over-enthusiasm. I'm just wondering, though, whether this relationship is now such that it's built only on the individual sort of chemistry between these two leaders, or do you all believe that it goes well beyond that, that it operates, as I've been saying earlier, at multiple levels, that you will have state governments now liaising with the Israelis, that there are key areas where the two countries can have common interests? Do you believe that this relationship is now a sort of alliance for the future? That this is not just about Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu, but a relationship that now you believe is completely independent even of India's support for the Palestinian cause, for example?
First of all, Israel is used that on the one hand we can have a good relationship with a strong ally like India, and the same side to get criticized for the Palestinian issue. This is the situation also with some of our European friends, and also with the US. So in Israel, we can live with this kind of two issues in the same time. No issue about this.
Right.
Secondly, I think it's far beyond the leaders themselves. I think it's people to people. You know, I'm visiting to India very frequently. I feel the embrace in the street. I think this visit will make the same situation here. People are really excited for this visit. When you've seen this on your TV, we've seen it here on our TV, and there's a big issue here. I think that, of course, you know, in the end of the day, everything is about personality and people. But beyond that, I think that this will go down to the very depth of people to people, both in Israel and in India.
Let's just listen in, Benjamin, for a moment to what the two leaders said. We can listen in as they warmly greeted each other, an almost unprecedented welcome to the Indian Prime Minister from the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Listen in to what the two leaders had to say about each other and their countries.
My friend Prime Minister Narendra Modi, welcome to Israel. Aapka suhagat hai, mere dost. Prime Minister, we've been waiting for you a long time. We've been waiting almost 70 years, in fact, because yours is truly a historic visit. It's the first time an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Israel. We receive you with open arms. We love India. We admire your culture. We admire your history, your democracy, your commitment to progress. We view you as kindred spirits in our common quest to provide a better future for our peoples and for our world. Prime Minister, when I first met you at the United Nations 3 years ago, we agreed to break down the remaining walls between India and Israel. We shook each other's hands, and we agreed to forge a historic partnership for progress. We then met again in Paris, and since then we've spoken many times on the phone. But I remember, my friend, what you said in that first meeting. You said that when it comes to India-Israel's relations, the sky is the limit. On this visit, your Make in India initiative meets my Make with India policy. We're setting up a $40 million innovation fund as the seed for even greater cooperation on technology between us. Our partnership extends to water, agriculture, security, energy, many, many other fields. I believe the formula for success is simple. It's I square, T square. That equals Indian talent times Israeli technology. It equals Israel-India's ties for tomorrow. I square, T square. I'm confident of the success of our partnership for many reasons. First is the talent of our peoples. It's been said, Prime Minister, that in Silicon Valley in California, the two most common languages overheard are Hindi and Hebrew. Occasionally, one hears some native English too. Second, I believe in the success of our partnership because of the great sympathy between our peoples, the natural camaraderie between Indians and Israelis. The Jews of India and the 100,000 Israelis of Indian descent are a wonderful human bridge between our two nations, our two peoples. Third, I'm confident of our success because of leadership. Prime Minister Modi, you're a great leader of India and a great world leader. Your visit to Israel is a testament to that.
I want to thank my friend, Prime Minister Netanyahu, for the invitation and for receiving me with so much warmth. My visit celebrates the strength of centuries-old links between our societies. Based on these bonds of our partnership has maintained a strong and sustained upswing since the establishment of full relationship, diplomatic relations 25 years ago. Friends, the people of Israel have built a nation on democratic principles. They have nurtured it with hard work, greed, and the spirit of innovation. You have marched on regardless of adversity and converted challenges into opportunity.
Okay, so the big story, of course, coming in there from Israel, warm greetings between the two leaders, speaking about breaking new ground, calling it path-breaking, and calling it a relationship where the sky is the limit and in fact can reach out to the stars. What does this mean? This new Israel-India axis that has been built over the years, now cemented by Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the fact that it's all out in the open and not by stealth perhaps suggests how global and domestic politics have changed over the last quarter of a century. Remember, it was in 1992 that P.V. Narasimha Rao rang up Yasser Arafat and told him that he intended to end Israel's diplomatic isolation. No such phone calls now required. The two leaders clearly have taken this relationship to another level. We'll be back with all the latest on this special coverage of the Prime Minister's visit to Israel. Back in a moment. Coverage here as the Indian Prime Minister creates a bit of history this time by becoming the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel on an official visit. 25 years after relationships between the two countries were finally re-established, Prime Minister Modi has broken new ground by arriving in Tel Aviv, where he has been very warmly greeted by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. That hug, in a sense, symbolizing the changing nature of that relationship. The body language, I know this is a word that we use, and with Prime Minister Modi in particular, that becomes important. Do you see this as a special relationship? I'm playing on the other corner. The little child, Moshe, who, if you remember, lost his parents in the Mumbai 26/11 attack. The Prime Minister will be meeting him shortly.
Saved by the Indian maid.
Saved by the Indian maid. But the body language, do you sense that this is a very special relationship that the two leaders have with each other?
I agree with you, but I want to give a twist to it.
Yes.
That the body language this time is specific because Netanyahu was the first to go and hug Mr. Modi. It is always Mr. Modi who really takes an initiative. That's what I said, enterprising.
Interesting. And you covered that 26/11 attack and you wrote a book on it, Sandeep, Unnithan. This particular relationship with young Moshe is in a sense part of the two countries' shared concern about terrorism.
Yes, absolutely, Rajdeep. And let's not forget 26/11, the entire attack was copycatted from an attack on Israeli soil, the attack on the Savoy Hotel in 1975 by 8 Palestinian terrorists who came in rubber boats and landed on Tel Aviv and went and proceeded to capture a hotel in the heart of the city. And they took hostages. It's very similar to 26/11 on a much smaller scale.
Right.
So what happened in Mumbai in 2008 was pretty much similar to this. You had people landing in Colaba in a rubber boat and going to Chabad House and capturing it. And I'm sure this is the kind of, these similarities that are going to be brought out when the...
Sure, because, I want to, for a moment, taking off from what you said there, Sandeep, go to the emissary or the person who now heads Chabad House. Rabbi Israel Kozlovsky is joining me from Mumbai. Appreciate your joining us. Your first reactions when you heard that the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Kozlovsky, will be meeting 10-year-old, now he's 10-year-old Moshe, the first thought which came to your mind?
I thought it's very appropriate, but at the same time was honored to hear that the PM is paying this tribute to Moshe. And obviously it's a show of respect to his parents who have sacrificed their life doing their mission to establish this Jewish center in Mumbai.
Have you or the Jewish Center, the Chabad House, been able to keep track of what young Moshe is up to as he is growing up, with the memories of 26/11 still in the past?
Of course, myself and my family, we are in close touch with his grandparents. And we were recently, about a month and a half ago, visiting Israel, and we traveled to the city of Afula, where he lives with his grandparents, Rabbi and Mrs. Rosenberg. And he's a cute growing boy.
Cute growing boy. I was reading about him this morning in the Indian Express, where apparently he likes Ronaldo and Messi. He's fond of football. Now, as you said, you've been in touch with Moshe's grandparents. What have you heard about Moshe's likes and dislikes as he grows up?
I don't know what he likes a lot besides Indian food, which I clearly know he likes a lot. But what we would like is to see Moshe growing and coming back to Mumbai, to Nariman House, to the place where tragically he lost his parents physically, but he is together with his parents spiritually. And we hope to see him back here, and the sooner the better. And at the same time, we know it's going to take a little bit of time, and we are patiently waiting for that.
You're patiently waiting for that. You know, as we play images of the two leaders meeting each other, we'll also play pictures of Moshe, who in a sense symbolizes, as we say, the shared concerns that the two countries have when it comes to terror. With Moshe, we remember the 26/11 attacks. Do those images still haunt Chabad House there in Mumbai where you are today? Is that something that you've been able to now push to the past?
26/11, it's not something to forget. The memories of 26/11 are a part of our daily life. And along with the sadness of this tragedy, of this innocence, of the 26/11 attack, which wounded 166 people in this holy place, the rabbi, his wife, and 4 of their guests, including, and besides, 2 NSG's officers who were killed during the operation to take control over the building. But together with the sadness of it, we are working tirelessly to transform this pain into action. As the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, our Jewish leader, have taught us that God is giving us direction in this all darkness, and we need to find a way how to transform this pain into action, and to learn how we can get together the same way that those 10 Lashkar Taiba murderers got together and decided to strike the Indian nation and to kill and to have an impact, a bad impact, obviously, on the Indian society and on us, the Jews. And how much so if we, the good people, every one of us, get together and try to find out a way, what can I improve in my own life, what can I change, what good deed can I add in my own life, to get together and unite with other people in order to make this world a better place. And I think this is the message, this is the lesson that we as civilians.
How have you managed, though, to rebuild Chabad House? Have you completely been able to rebuild it after the 26/11 attack?
So on August 2014, with God's help, we have re-entered the Chabad House, as it's known as Nariman House. And the bottom 3 floors are completely operational now, where we back to host people from all over the world, and Indians from the Jewish community who are traveling through or just coming to study in our library or to read books, etc., and to have Torah lessons or to study or to pray. And besides, we have the top 2 floors, the 4th and the 5th floor, and the terrace, which we have dedicated for a museum project, a memorial project for those who have gave their life on 26/11 in entire Mumbai, not just in the Nariman house, not just in Chabad house. And this is our project that we are working now. We are hoping to complete it by the 10th anniversary of 26/11. This is I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this is the concept that we are working and making. And it's a plan of how to literally bring this idea of turning pain. We must translate pain into action and tears into growth. This is the words of the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson. And this is a complete detailed idea of how we can bring it into a reality. And visitors will be coming to Mumbai, will be stopping in this place, will take a message out of this 26/11 attack, but in this time it will be a positive message, and a message of tolerance, and a message of unity. And with this unity, we will change the world, and not only will change the world, we will make sure such things, such indecent, bad innocence of 26/11 cannot happen and should not happen again.
Israel Kuzlevsky, I appreciate your joining us, telling us how you are rebuilding after 26/11, bringing back memories there of Moshe. We'll have much more on that, remember, because the Prime Minister is expected to meet the little Israeli boy later this evening. All our guests are with us in the studio. Sanjay Jha and Zafarul Islam, also of the Congress and the BJP, joining us. General Shankar Prasad is with us as well. Big visit of the two sides. The two prime ministers have set the stage. I'm going to take a short break and then come to all my guests to look back at what this means. Is this building on a legacy, or is this Narendra Modi carving a slice of history for himself? Back in a moment.